Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today. Today, I wanted to provide some updates for Nevadans as it relates to protections in place for tenants and landlords when the CDC eviction moratorium lifts at the end of this month. I'm grateful today to be joined by Shannon Chambers, President of the Board of Directors from Home Means Nevada, and Kevin Schiller, Assistant County Manager for Clark County, who you will hear from briefly. We first implemented an eviction moratorium early on in the pandemic to help residents stay home for Nevada. Keeping Nevadans safe in their homes helps slow the spread of COVID-19. As the pandemic has changed and evolved, so has our approach to the moratorium, and we've been able to build out rental assistance programs with state and county partners, mediation programs with the court system, and most recently by partnering with the Nevada legislature to create a so-called glide path for evictions. More on that in a moment. I want to thank all of the dedicated and steadfast partners in this work who have spent countless hours working to create fair and just systems to ensure that tenants don't lose their housing through no fault of their own, and to make sure landlords get the money that they are owed. We're in a much better place because of this work. Earlier this year, I signed Assembly Bill 486 legislation brought forward in collaboration with Assemblyman Steve Yeager and Senator Julia Ratti, and alongside Senate Majority Leader Nicole Cannizzaro and Assembly Speaker Jason Frierson. I think the Assemblyman was able to join us here on this Zoom. I wanted to talk briefly about what this legislation does and why it's so important. Then Shannon will talk about how to apply for this assistance, and Kevin will provide an update on the work in Clark County on this initiative. Broadly speaking, this legislation helps ensure that qualified tenants who are awaiting rental assistance applications to be processed are protected from being evicted for non-payment of rent. We have plenty of rental assistance money available through funds from the federal government, and there are dedicated people at all levels of government working to process those payments as quickly as possible, directly to landlords on behalf of the tenants. AB 486 was enacted and creates a glide path for the end of the eviction moratorium. The law ensures that both landlords and tenants will receive the benefit of $360 million in federally funded rental assistance to keep tenants in their homes, pay landlords, and prevent avoidable evictions. This sets Nevada up for more long-term success and will help prevent unnecessary evictions when the CDC moratorium lifts on July 31st. I want to be clear. If you are a renter, you must apply for this assistance. Shannon and Kevin will shortly go over how to do so. Filling out and submitting an application is the best thing you can do right now if you fear you may be evicted for non-payment of rent. Under AB 486, if the tenant raises the defense of a pending rental assistance application, the court will stay the case until mediation or determination on the tenant's application. If rental assistance is available, a landlord can accept it and the tenant can remain housed and avoid a preventable eviction. If the tenant desires to move out, there can be an agreement on the move-out date with payment. The parties are free to work out any agreement that makes sense for them. Declogging the court calendars and avoiding evictions, which may prevent a tenant from being able to re-rent a unit, are all positives. Again, I want to thank all of those who have been involved in quickly creating and standing up these systems to minimize the harm done to Nevadans who have been out of work and adversely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. We will continue to monitor this process and make adjustments as necessary. In particular, I want to send a special shout out and a thanks to Barbara Buckley and to our treasurer, Zach Conine, for the work they have done to make these programs possible. Thank you, Barbara, and thank you, Zach. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Shannon to discuss more in depth how Nevadans can access these services. Shannon?
So good afternoon, Governor Sisolak. Thank you very much, and thank you all today on this call. My name is Shannon Chambers. I'm the president of Home Means Nevada. Last October, we were appointed as the administrator of the rental eviction mediation program. and took that role and task very seriously and implemented the program very quickly with the support and assistance of Governor Sisolak and his administration, legislative leadership, and great assistance from Chief Justice Hardesty and the Nevada Supreme Court. So to the governor's point, what I really need to emphasize today is, as a tenant and as a landlord, you need to take action to access the available rental assistance funds. Home Means Nevada has a complete website called therenterconnect.org that has information on how to apply for rental assistance for each of the counties in the state of Nevada. We will also be activating the landlord rental assistance form effective August 1st, 2021, to allow landlords to apply for rental assistance under Assembly Bill 486. The key point to remember is that rental assistance still runs through the tenant. So while AB 486 does provide some additional options for landlords, the process still must start and end with the tenant, and I cannot emphasize that enough, and I know Mr. Schiller will emphasize that as well. So tenants do need to act, and they do need to take action and fill out those rental assistance forms. If they are served with a court case, they need to actively elect to participate in mediation and to participate in that process. The benefits of the mediation process is that it slows down the eviction process and it allows the counties and the housing authorities to process those pending rental assistance applications, or in the alternative, to provide that information through a mediator to the court so that the tenant can raise that defense of potential rental assistance. So under Assembly Bill 486 and under the program that Home Means Nevada has built with the various stakeholders, we are trying to ensure that no rental assistance application goes unprocessed and that no funds are left on the table. But again, the tenant and the landlord must be active in this process. They must participate, and that comes to the mediation process as well. If you are a tenant and you elect mediation, you need to show up to the mediation. You need to respond to the mediator. Home Means Nevada has 86 mediators currently under our approved program that on a whole are processing in some cases anywhere between 20 to 30 cases a week. So the more active and more participatory the tenant and the landlord are, the more ability we have, to Governor Sisolak's point, to declog the court systems and to resolve these cases by providing rental assistance, or in some cases coming to other agreements through the landlord and tenant. Maybe it's a modification of rent, maybe it's simply vacating the property. But again, the tenant and the landlord need to be active in this process and need to participate. All the information on how to do this has been put up on the Renter Connect through Home Means Nevada. There is a specific tenant box and a specific landlord box, which has all the forms, has links to all the counties for rental assistance. And as I stated earlier, effective August 1st, 2021, we will have the landlord rental assistance form on our website. And just to kind of outline that process, the landlord will fill out that form through Home Means Nevada. Depending upon the eligibility criteria and the landlord's answers, we will then send that to the counties or housing authorities for review. In Assembly Bill 486, the timeline for that process is up to 60 days. Home Means Nevada has been engaging with the counties, mainly Clark County, on how that process will work. And so we have the ability right now to start that process. But again, just knowing that we were going to provide some information to everybody today, that form will go live August 1st, 2021. And Home Means Nevada does know that landlords are looking very forward to that form and very forward to that program. And we're happy to say that we are ready to move that process forward and ready to start accepting those forms and have landlords fill out those forms. We've also put up frequently asked questions about the program on the renterconnect.org and have information on there on how to submit additional questions to Home Means Nevada about that. The key piece to all of this, again, is the rental assistance piece, and that runs through the counties or the housing authorities. And again, we have all the information on our website. And for Clark County, I know Kevin Schiller is on this call today, and I'm going to turn it over to him to speak specifically how that process will work in Clark County. And again, I'm also available for any questions at the end. So thank you all very much.
Good afternoon. First, want to thank Governor Sisolak, Home Means Nevada, Legal Aid of Southern Nevada, and all of our partners for this opportunity to re-emphasize a couple pieces. Since roughly June of 2020, we have essentially put out about $165 million, serving about 90,000 households between utility assistance and rental assistance. The key message today, as Shannon was just referencing, is really focusing on application on the tenant basis to make sure that whether it's through AB 486, through the eviction process, or through the traditional CHAP application, that application does get filed. We have funds available to do so. We are averaging right now amongst our almost 400 employees managing this, about 800 to 1,000 applications per week. I want to put out a couple key pieces of information to everybody so they're aware. The first is if you're experiencing this, as Shannon just indicated, it's important that you apply. So I want to make sure everybody has the web portal information, which is chap.clarkcountynv.gov. And all you have to do is click on the visit portal. And I also want to make sure for landlords that are on this, that they have this number, 702-455-4071, which is our landlord portal, which allows for vendor payment to be expedited once an application is approved. Two other phone numbers. One is for Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada, which is 386-1079. That's area code 702. I want to make sure everybody has that number. And again, our helpline is 702-455-4071. Two pieces of information. We also have HopeLink, Nevada Partners in Help of Southern Nevada nonprofits here that are helping support clients and people applying if they're having difficulty downloading. Two of the key issues that we have seen in terms of the application processing timelines are downloaded documents either being in the wrong location or the documents themselves are the incorrect documents. So I think it's very important that I emphasize that that needs to be a priority. I also want to emphasize that if you're coming through the eviction process and they have applied, that essentially becomes a prioritized application and ends up in the mediation program, as Shannon just indicated. We processed almost 1,600 of those to date since we established the eviction process, which we spoke about at the governor's last press conference on this topic. The other piece that I want to make sure I again emphasize is please make sure if you are served with that or if you are experiencing arrears that you apply at chap.clarkcountynv.gov. It's essential. And then for the landlords, we want to make sure and we recognize it takes a process and time to expedite payments that you actually can get into the portal. So if you have trouble, I want you to call 455-4071. In the current structure, as we're currently sitting, again, it's about 800 to 1,000 applications per week, and we have about 8,000 that are currently sitting in the queue awaiting processing. I want to emphasize the fact that once that application is in, and if you reach out related to mediation, that essentially starts the process so that we have time to get you processed and get your landlord paid. And with that, I'll turn it over for questions.
Thank you all again for joining us. And I just want to reiterate the number for legal aid, the phone number for legal aid is 702-386-1070. That's 702-386-1070. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And at this time, we'll be able to take some questions. Shannon and Kevin, if you want to flip your cameras back on, because I think we'll have some questions for you all as well. Sorry, this is Megan Delaney in the governor's office. If there's any press on the line that has questions, if you could please use the raise hand feature and we'll call on you that way. All right, we'll start with Terry Russell for the first question. Terry, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
I'm checking to see with Kevin or whomever, if I don't live in Las Vegas or Clark County, do people that live in Northern Nevada go to this Home Means Nevada and maneuver their way through that system to fill out forms? Is that how that's going to work?
Thanks, Terry. Shannon, can you help answer Terry's question, please?
So good afternoon, Ms. Russell. That is correct. If you go to Renter Connect, it has information for all the counties, not just Clark County. So it would have Washoe County. It has information about Northern Nevada Rural Housing Authority. So if you go to the renterconnect.org, it will have all that information county by county and have those application forms for those counties.
Thank you, Shannon, and thank you, Terry, for the question. We'll go to Tabitha, Michael Lyle, and then Sasha, I see you in there. So Tabitha, Michael, and then Sasha.
Hi, Governor Sisolak. I know that you've said that you didn't want to extend the eviction moratorium anymore, but now that COVID cases are rapidly rising, and especially with the Delta variant, do you still think a longer moratorium is inappropriate?
No, I think that the moratorium expires this weekend. I encourage everyone to get a vaccine as quickly as possible, and we can put an end to this virus and this pandemic. But there was not another state extension of the eviction moratorium coming.
Thanks, Tabitha. We'll go to Michael, Sasha, and then Sam.
Good afternoon. This question is actually for Kevin. I'm sorry if I missed this, but is there an update on, as far as the backlog, if there's still a backlog for a rental assistance application? And if so, could you kind of go over those numbers?
So I referenced it in my presentation. There's about 8,000 individuals in the queue. At one point, we were over 15,000, and we're processing anywhere from 800 to 1,000 a week amongst the 400 staff that are processing applications.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for the question, Michael. We'll go to Sasha from Channel 8 next. Sam, and then someone with Jefferson T. I don't know if Jefferson is first or last name, but Sasha, then Sam, please.
Hello. I don't know who specifically would be able to answer this question, but in regards to rising rents here in Las Vegas, I've spoken to a lot of people who are having trouble paying as their rent rises. Is there anything specifically in this legislation that would help people in those types of situations to kind of make up that extra money that they can't meet now as their rent goes up?
Thank you, Sasha. Shannon, are you able to talk about whether there's anything in the legislation for that? Thank you.
So thank you for the question. I'll do my best to address it, but would certainly ask Mr. Schiller to jump in. The rental assistance funds are specifically intended to replace rent that hasn't been paid. There is nothing specific in those funds that allows flexibility for affordable housing issues, and that is just the dynamics of those funds. They are intended to replace rent that has not been paid.
And as a follow-up to that, this is Kevin Schiller, I would just echo, we are in the process and we have already allocated using alternative funds, but we're utilizing rescue funds to support those on fixed income with rising rental rates. We are working on processes to support that because the cost of rehousing is extensively higher. So just to give you that, we are working on that through our American Rescue Act funds, and we have done that already isolated because we are seeing rising rents with individuals with fixed incomes.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Shannon. We'll go to Sam for the next question, Jefferson T, and then Tabitha. I can't tell if your hand's still raised or if you have another question, but Sam and then Jefferson.
Thanks for taking my question. Kevin, you said that Clark had distributed $165 million in assistance. I'm wondering out of how much allocated? And for someone else, do we have figures about allocation and distribution on a statewide level?
Thanks, Sam. We'll go to Kevin first for Clark, and then Shannon might have statewide numbers for you, or we'll follow up. Kevin, do you? I don't have
this is Kevin. I don't have the absolute total, so I can give you the follow-up on that, but I would estimate we probably have about another 100 million in availability through the partnership with the state of Nevada in coordination with the cities. And then I think your second question was, what was it proportionately? And I think we could follow up on that also through the state.
Thanks, Kevin. Shannon, did you have anything to add, or do you want us to follow up with Sam?
Megan, I would recommend following up with Sam.
Okay, Sam, shoot me an email and we'll try to get you some stuff as soon as we can. We'll go to Jefferson T for the next question and then back to Tabitha. Jefferson, it shows that you're unmuted, but if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
Jefferson Tyler here. Can you hear me? Hello?
Sure. What organization are you with?
Channel 2 News out of Reno.
Perfect. Go ahead with your question.
Hey, I just have some clarification I wanted to ask. The 166 million, that's from AB 43, correct? And the 300 million, that's for AB 46, correct?
Shannon, do you have those numbers handy?
Megan, I would recommend following up on that question. AB 486, and I believe Jefferson referenced AB 483. There was not specific state appropriations to that, so I would recommend following up on that.
So is the 165 million, is that out of the 300 million we're talking right now, or is that the 300 million in addition to that? 360 in addition to that?
I think you're referencing the 162 million that Kevin spoke about. Is that the number you're citing?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
So just to quantify it for you, the 162 million is based on an allocation from the Consolidated Appropriations Act and the initial CARES funding that came out at the onset of COVID. So those are those two cost centers, just so you're aware.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying that. And you said that the landlords can apply and that the tenants can apply, but it goes through the tenant. So in that case, does the money go to the tenant is what you're saying, or that the landlord has to get the tenant to apply for everything?
Thank you. Shannon, I saw you come on screen and unmute. Can you help us with this one?
Yes, absolutely. So Jefferson, so how it works is the rental assistance process is still driven by the tenant. Assembly Bill 486 created a new program that if the tenant failed to apply for rental assistance or refused to respond to requests to apply for rental assistance, then the landlord could apply. And at that point, if the landlord is determined to be eligible after a review, then the landlord would receive that money.
Thanks for that clarification, Shannon. We'll take the next question from Tabitha. If there's anyone else who has a question, now would be the time to raise your hand, or we will pull to a close after Tabitha.
Hi, I have actually two questions, but I'll start with the first one. Why is there such a significant backlog of pending rental assistance applications? Do we feel like this program has adequate staff and technology resources to efficiently respond to the crisis and the need that we're seeing right now?
Kevin, did you want to speak? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll speak to that. First of all, across the country, it's a national issue in terms of the sheer volume. But what I would say is we've added almost 350 staff to support this program. Most jurisdictions across the country, or several, have turned back actually the Consolidated Appropriations Act dollars based on the inability to get those out the door. That has not been the case in Nevada and nor in Clark County. Like I said, we're at processing about 800 to 1,000, and that includes several IT updates, which were all tied to Treasury guidance. You have to meet requirements for audit to support payment. So it's really a question of obeying the rules related to audit and then processing so that it's allowable. So I would say in terms of proportionality, we're doing a pretty good job in terms of getting those dollars out. It doesn't look that way when you see people that are in arrears and you have a queue. But as I said previously, that processing, it couldn't be expedited any higher than it currently is. And then the eviction process that we established with the Supreme Court, the state of Nevada and the chambers has really been a key in expediting in terms of prioritizing so that people don't become homeless or locked out of their homes.
Thanks, Tabitha. Did you have one more before we go to Terry?
Yeah, I did have one more question. And my last question is kind of about COVID and like how concerned are you that the work, and I'm not sure you're the best person to address this would be, but How concerned are you that the worsening COVID situation will prevent the nearly 200,000 Nevadans who are on unemployment from securing a job by the time benefits programs expire in a month? Because I think there are some people that are worried once those benefits programs expire, we're going to see more evictions and more issues that way.
And I appreciate the question, Tabitha, but I think the real question is what can you do and what can I do to encourage more people to get a vaccine? Because that's going to prevent them from having to go further with unemployment, to be able to go back to work. And the focus we have right now is on getting a vaccine. And anybody with the media here, I appreciate you making that front and center. We encourage everyone who has not been vaccinated to go out and get a vaccine. It's going to help us, it's going to help them, it's going to help their families. It's going to give our students a chance to have a senior year in high school or junior year in high school. They gave up a whole year last year. So the real thing we're trying to do is encourage everybody. If you haven't been vaccinated, please take the time, find out where the location is nearest you and go get a vaccine.
Thanks, Gov. Thanks, Tabitha. Terry, do you want to take it home with the last question today?
So I just want to make sure I have this correct. I want to send people to renterconnect.org, including landlords, and this allows it's tenant driven, however, but I mean, can landlords pop into this and do this? And has anybody, do you run into where landlords say, I just want my tenant out. I just want him out of the house, apartment, and I want to re-rent the thing. I don't want to participate in any of this stuff. Is that an option for a landlord?
So Ms. Russell, again, this is Ms. Chambers. So on the renterconnect.org, yes, there is information for landlords and tenants on there. There will be the new form effective August 1st, 2021 for the landlords to submit information to Home Means Nevada for potential landlord rental assistance. That's all on the renterconnect.org. To your point about landlords saying, I don't want anything to do with this, that has happened in the past. One of the issues that Assembly Bill 486 is specifically addressing is that if there is a rental assistance application that is pending, the landlord cannot simply throw up their hands and say, I don't want anything to do with this. That application needs to go through the process and a determination on that application that is then reported through the mediation process to the court. So that is no longer an option if there is a rental assistance application pending.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. We appreciate your questions. They're great thought-out questions. And again, I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to implore everyone, please do what you can to help us. Encourage everyone to get out and get a vaccine, wear a mask when appropriate, and we can put an end to this pandemic once and for all. So thank you all.